You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Naturally, Jayden Daniels decided to forego the Senior Bowl. It looks like he's going to be, by all accounts, a top 5 pick, possibly as high as number 2. There are some people that could get a wild hair and say, hey, what if Chicago has the number 1 pick and decides Jayden Daniels is that guy? He could go number 1. So I can understand to that end. Jayden will have his day in front of all these teams and doesn't necessarily need to be there. Same goes for Malik Nabers, who I understand is a junior. But Malik Nabers is a guy that this season has skyrocketed up draft boards. And Mel Kiper Jr. was a guest on First Draft. It's a podcast with Field Yates over at ESPN. And they started talking about Nabers and Daniels first. Here was Mel Kiper talking about the improvement Malik Nabers has made from his sophomore year to his junior year.
When I look at him last year, he wasn't the guy he was this year. 2023 season, you talk about what he was able to do for Jayden Daniels. He can be in the slot. He can be outside. This is a kid who was remarkable this season in terms of not dropping passes and producing big play after big play. And he loves to play the game of football. I've always spoken about how much of a baller he is, how tough, how physical, how reliable he is. The improvement he showed this year was dramatic. You see the touchdown improvement, the average per catch, everything up, making plays, stretching it, taking top off of defense, wanting the ball at clutch moments. When they needed him the most, game after game, Field, he did it.
Malik Nabers was awesome. He leaves LSU as the all-time leader in receptions and receiving yards. And what a season for Nabers. 89 receptions, 1,569 yards, and 14 touchdowns. And for his efforts, he has skyrocketed up draft boards and made himself a ton of money. And then one more. Here was Kiper on Jayden Daniels. And this was, I'm interested in, as we go through the draft process and get closer, I am going to ask a lot of draft analysts this. I'm going to ask about the single season rise from where you were the year before to where you end up going. You're going to hear Mel say, well, play the cut and then I'll come back. He was asked about, could you think of a year where there was a single season rise like this?
When you look at the ability he had to stress a defense, and you saw him in the SEC running away from defensive backs, just seeing the field. I think his vision is seeing the field and being able to throw with his eyes up on the move and being able to take hit after hit. He was about 205, maybe, Field. He played at 180 at times during his career, but he did add weight to the frame. We were talking about a 4th rounder last year, now the 2nd, 3rd pick overall, and I love the fact that he takes shots and he doesn't throw interceptions. He runs, he's aggressive, he doesn't fumble the football. We needed to see certain things, we did. Jayden Daniels, to me, is right in line to be that 2nd pick overall, at worst a 3rd pick. And like I said, no player that I remember at quarterback went from a 4th rounder to the 2nd pick overall and did that type of a quantum leap in one season.
You know, the most interesting thing about it, though, is we did see this with Joe Burrow. And I understand Mel has looked at thousands and thousands and thousands of prospects over so many decades. But, I mean, Joe Burrow wasn't a 4th round pick. Joe Burrow was thought to be like a late day 3 undrafted free agent type prospect and then skyrocketed up draft boards all the way to number 1 overall. So maybe he wasn't prepared to answer the question, but this isn't altogether unprecedented. Hell, it's not unprecedented for an LSU quarterback. But it does speak to how more often you see things go the other way, right? The guy that before the season starts, you think, oh, he could be the number 1 overall pick, and then they fall. Spencer Rattler is a great example of that. Spencer Rattler is a guy who, before he left Oklahoma, was thought to be a potential number 1 overall pick, lost his job to Caleb Williams, and then ends up playing 2 more years at South Carolina. Matt Barkley was one of those guys who probably would have been a top 5 pick, decided to come back to school, plummeted in the draft. We see more of that than we do the other way. Guys that just skyrocket all the way up from off the board to number 1, top 5 overall pick. So Mel Kiper, just with a couple of thoughts there on the First Draft podcast with Field Yates, if you want to check it out wherever you get your podcast. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.